Hello everyone, hope everybody's having a good night tonight. So I figured I would do a little tutorial video on wicking, specifically with cotton bacon. I know a few people have told me that they don't like cotton bacon just because it's terrible to wick with, and so that right away I turned them off. And I personally love cotton bacon. I haven't had any huge, humongous issues with it, so I figured I would pass on a little bit I know to you guys. Feel free to shoot any questions down in the comments below or shoot me a PM. So as you can see here, I've got my brass spoon on top of my copper dragon, and you can see here the cotton is a brownish, bluish, greenish, disgusting color. Now you might ask, oh, that's gross, you're gonna die. No, you're fine. All this means is that I've been using a juice with food coloring in it and with a lot of sweetener in it. Now you might say, oh, but that's unhealthy to vape on. I mean, you could vape on it. It's going to taste a little funky, and it might not hold as much juice, but that's about it. Anyway, it's time to change it. So I'm going to take it out, throw some new coils in, and we'll be right back. Hang on just a moment. Alright, and we're back. So I'll grab my old dinky coils just so you can see. Here's one of the old coils. You can see it's all blue and brown and dingy. The other one's in even a little bit worse condition. You can see it needed to be changed. So I put in some fresh coils in here, some royal wires I put in there. It's in the Goon 24, in case you guys are wondering. The 24mm Goon, so the regular version, it's in brass. So yeah, and I tested it. I made sure in another device that there was no shorts, no hot spots, all that happy fun stuff. And always remember when you're building to be building on everything a device without a battery in it. You'll see here, this I just use for building on because it's a nice sturdy thing. There's no battery in there. That way you don't run into A, any dangerous stuff, auto fire and whatnot. B, any shorts, and C, any chance of burning yourself while you're finagling with the coil. Now, on to the main event. How to wick with cotton bacon. I've seen a lot of people, and I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't like cotton bacon for the reason of they find that they can't wick well with it, right? They find either it's too thick, too thin, it falls apart, so on and so forth. I've heard various issues with it, and I figured I would, as an avid cotton bacon user, I would give a little insight as to how I wick with it. Let me adjust the camera, and I will continue. Okay, now, so basically what you want to do is you want to start with your cotton bacon V2. Well, actually, V2 and V1 are a little bit different. V2 I find works a little bit better, but V1 is also good. But even before that, you want to make sure your hands are nice and clean. The reason why you want to do that is because without them being clean, when you're working with your cotton, you can leave behind residue from the oils on your skin, and that can give you a gnarly taste at the beginning, and it's not fun, not worth it. So make sure your hands are clean and whatever you're using to cut with is clean. I personally like to use a pair of nail scissors here. They get the job done, but whatever works. Now personally what I like to do, and I'm actually going to lower the camera that way you can see while I'm talking. Apologies for all the camera movement. I'm not used to doing tutorials that often. So you're going to want to take a piece of cotton bacon. Comes in strips like bacon, hence the name. And put this over to the side. Now you see here you've got this whole big thing. You don't need this much. Trust me, you don't need this much. These are 9/64 inner diameter coils. So they are a little over 3.5 millimeter, and trust me, you don't need this much, even though they're the big coils. So I like to rip off about, I don't know, I'd say about a third or so, give or take, and I obviously the bigger piece I don't need, put that to the side. Now, here is where it can make or break you right here. What I find the best is to start rolling it. Now what I'll do is I'll put it in the center of my fingers like so, almost like I have a cigarette as pencil, or as some former smokers might have rolled their own cigarettes, similar fashion, and you're going to just roll it back and forth in your hand slowly from the center and move your way out, and just keep doing that. And the reason you're doing this is because this gets all the fibers in line, as well as it compresses it a little bit so it's a little bit easier to work with. And that way, once you get it inside your coil, once it starts to expand, and it'll fight the need to collapse a little bit better from hot builds. So you're just going to want to keep doing that a few times until it's in a nice shape, kind of like a cigarette shape. You know, a little cylinder, if you will. And then what I'll sometimes do is, when I'm working with a larger diameter coil, is I'll also roll it in between my hands a little bit. Kind of like I'm playing with silly putty or something along those lines. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball it and see if it looks roughly the right size. You know, as far as, you don't want, you know, obviously bigger than your coil. That's not going to work. You want it as close to your coil as possible size-wise. So this looks like it'll be a little bit big, so I'm just going to take a hair off from the end that isn't all rolled up. I'm going to take a little hair off and take that down, all the way down. And then I'm going to go back and do my rolling back and forth method. Again, to make sure everything is in line, as it'll help it wick better, as well as hold together better. And we're just going to do this tight roll again on the one side with a little bit sticking out. Now, here's another little trick that I found. When you try and get it in the coil, take the one end and twist it. Don't roll it, twist it. You want to get a nice and tight twist, and why you're doing this is to get it nice and tight and small, so it's easier to get into the coil. And then the rest of it is obviously nice and fat, so it'll fill in the coil, but just so you can grab it from the other side. Sorry, I'm not used to doing this on camera, so I'm doing my best. This is also on my phone, so I apologize. You want to stick it through the one side and gently pull it through the other. Now you're going to start feeling resistance. You want to keep pulling. You want to where you really start feeling heavy resistance, but not too much. Now you want so that when you're tugging on it, it doesn't really want to move. But you know, if you really pull on it, it'll still move without moving the whole coil. A lot of it takes practice as far as finding that right spot. If you have it too snug, to where it's trying to almost move the coil and or it does move the coil, you're gonna get dry hits. You'll know you'll be getting dry hits. It's from this issue by if you see the cotton right next to the coil is dry, but like the rest of the wicks are saturated. And by having it too loose, it may be fine for, you know, a few hits, if that, but then from the heat, it'll cause it to collapse. So yeah, you have that issue. So that's why you just want to pull it through like so, making sure it's nice in that in between. And then what I like to do is I like to cut it down on the wicks. But first, we'll do the other side so I can show you again how we do it. Or how I do it, excuse me. Take your piece of cotton bacon. Now obviously this is way too much, so we're going to take some off again. Now, don't throw this stuff away, because what I find is great to do with these little scraps is A, if you have tanks and you use smaller diameter for your tanks, that's good. Or B, what you can do is use it for like picking up little messes. Like I know I sometimes drop a little bit of juice. And then you're just going to want to roll it up again. Just want to keep rolling it up. And then do the tighter roll again, like you're playing with Play-Doh, or silly putty, whatever you want to call it. Now, I can tell right away again, it's a little bit too thick, so I'm going to have to take a little bit more off. I'm going to do that again. Now, looks about right. See here how this is still nice and fluffy. And we're going to do our nice tight twist. Tight, tight twist. And then we're going to stick it through the coil again. This one looks like it's going to be a little bit more difficult, so I'm going to do that spacing myself so it's a little bit easier. My apologies. Right, and as you see, I got it through. Just kind of slowly pulling it through if it's going to let me. Sometimes it can be a little bit finicky. Nope, doesn't want to. Going to take a little bit off that end because it's bothering it. Sometimes that can happen, just kind of bunches up for whatever reason. That is one of the few flaws with cotton bacon, is sometimes it can bunch up when you're trying to wick, I will say that. So that's just, gotta be patient with it, that's all. It's definitely worth it in my opinion because the flavor is very good out of it, as well as it holds up very well to high temperature builds. As far as, you know, a very hot build. Now, obviously, that being said, make sure keep in mind of your Ohm's law and all your other battery safety and all that happy fun stuff. But yeah, I want to pull it through. Again, remember, snug to where you feel resistance, but not to where you're pulling the coil with you, so to speak. You want to go back and forth so that's even, so you can see it kind of bunching up on both sides of the coil, not just one. Sometimes, you know, so that's why I like to rock it back and forth. Now from here we're going to cut our leads. I like to do, or not the leads, excuse me, our wicks. I like to personally do the U shape, so going down in the well like that and leaving a pocket down below and up above. So I will do that and we will be right back. Alright, so I've trimmed our wicks so they're in a little bit of like a T shape almost. And I'm just going to put it into the well. I'm using a little screwdriver there. It's going to either go under the coil or to the side of the coil depending on how much room you have. I usually do a little combination of both to get it in that well. You want to make sure it's also not, you know, choked off. You don't want it so tight that, you know, it can't access the juice. Let me grab some tweezers so I can tweak this a smidge. Alright, so as you can see, hang on, let me lower it. I have the one side of the first coil tucked in down there into my juice well, making sure to leave room underneath. Let me do the other side and I'll show again. Give me just a second, and we're almost there. Now, what I'm doing right here is you want to make sure you have a nice little air pocket both above, well, not just both, but above, below, above your coil, right up here, below your coil. If you look right here, see how you can see an air hole slash the post. That's what you want to see. Air, and then you'll look and see how there's air still behind the coil in between it and the posts. The reason for that is that you want the coil to breathe. That'll definitely help. Now I'm going to do the other side. Same exact process. Now, once again, if you look, got them both tucked into the well. Nice little air pocket above, below, and on the back side. Basically, like I said, you want to have the coil able to breathe as much as possible. So now we're going to juice it. Let's see here, what do I feel like vaping on right now? Some Fightin' Tiger. And I'll juice it right about meow. And then we'll come back and I'll give it a few test fires for you while the juice sets in. So after the juice sets in, excuse me. So hang on just a second. We'll be right back. Alright guys, and we are back. So now that the build has all been sitting in juice and everything, we're going to just check to make sure our battery has no nicks in it or anything like that in the wrap, because that can cause issues. I'm going to put it in our mod. And I'm just going to screw it on. I happen to be using my Copper Batch 1 Dragon mod. I highly recommend that you at least try one if you haven't. Okay. Now I'm just going to put on a drop more juice. And like I said earlier, make sure you respect Ohm's law and all that kind of stuff when you're building as far as your battery capabilities and whatnot. Now, I'm going to do a little test fire. And there we go. We have got vapor. So yeah, there you go. That's how you wick with cotton bacon. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to drop it down in the comments in the PM. Or yeah, hit the like, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you choose. So yeah, have a good night, everybody.